Hello, my name is Jordan Viola, and I decided to do a research paper on the attack on World War II when they attacked the Oregon coast. Most people know that the United States fought the Japanese in World War II. They remember the attacks on Pearl Harbor, but not a lot remember the attacks on the Oregon coast. Even though it was ineffective, they did happen. Oregon was bombed twice, and we even lost a ship just a few miles up the coast. The U.S. experienced two different types of bombings, balloon and seaplane bombings, and also had a submarine that attacked the coast and commercial and naval ships. After the attack on Pearl Harbor, Japan sent a long-range submarine called the I-25 to the northwest to attack naval ships that were heading to Alaska. On June 20th, 1942, the I-25 shelled and torpedoed the freighter SS Fort Camosun that was off the coast of Cape Flattery, while on the same day the I-26 submarine shelled a lighthouse on Vancouver Island. The freighter that was attacked by the I-25 didn't sink and was towed safely to the next port. In September, the I-25 took a position near Fort Stevens on the Columbia River. The 10-inch guns on the submarine fired on Fort Stevens but only succeeded in damaging a baseball backstop. Many people slept through the attack and only one person was killed. On October 4th, 1942, the I-25 attacked the freighter, the SS Camden, off the coast of Coos Bay, Oregon. It sank and the ship lost a crew member. A week later, it sunk the SS Larry Doheny, a tanker off the coast of Cape Sebastian. 6 people lost their lives in the attack. This thing was meant for reconnaissance, but even for a reconnaissance vehicle, this submarine had a lot of weapons. This submarine had 4 torpedoes, 2 missiles, and plenty of artillery shells. The I-25 was later defeated in the war and was sunk by several U.S. Navy destroyers. The Japanese wanted to change tactics, so they decided they wanted to start a forest fire in the northwest so that the U.S. would focus on the fire instead of the war. According to their records, they bombed Mount Emily. A specialized Japanese submarine came up just off the coast and launched a plane into the air. The U.S. thought it had been lightning, but when the Forest Service investigated, they found bomb fragments all over the forest. They later found out the Japanese used incendiary bombs to try to start a fire. This was on September 9th, 1942. When Nobuo Fuchita bombed the Oregon coast with his crew. Then the plane went to a certain altitude and bombed the Oregon coast. His 2 attacks on Oregon in September 1942 constituted the first attacks on the continental United States since the British invasion of 1814 during the War of 1812. He remains the only enemy pilot to ever drop bombs on the continental U.S. In November 1944, Japan launched balloons from their shore into the air that had incendiary bombs attached. The goal was still to try to start forest fires. Japan launched up to 9,000 balloons. Oregon counted 45 that hit them, and 1 balloon made it all the way to Wyoming. The balloons were 100 feet around and 33 feet in diameter. They traveled up to 30,000 feet. When the U.S. found out about these balloons, they started to intercept them while they were still above the Pacific. The only deaths on the U.S. mainland caused by the enemy attacks during World War II was caused by a family finding one of the dead bombs and it ended up going off on them. The U.S. had been worried about the Japanese Americans and their loyalty to their emperor. The attacks from Japan led to the removal of the Japanese Americans. we ended up putting them in concentration camps. During the bombings, Army and FBI officials interviewed people in Oregon and swore them to secrecy. Even though they did this, the news still appeared in newspapers across the country. If you were to ask anyone today about the Japanese attack on the United States mainland, most people wouldn't know what you were talking about. Most history classes do not talk about this, but if you go to the Oregon coast, you can see historical sites that tell the story.